Hi everyone, my name is Michelle Darcy and I'm the Director of Undergraduate Teaching and Learning in the School of Social Sciences and Philosophy. I'm going to try and explain to you a little bit about what the social sciences are and what philosophy is and how you can study these subjects in our school. So first, what are the social sciences? All human societies are shaped by social structures, economic, political and social. These vary across time and space, so the Irish political system today is very different to what it looked like 200 years ago or to the US system today. These structures matter because their design shapes our lives in fundamental ways. How we behave and what we believe, how we see ourselves and understand the world, what we can do, and also crucially, what we can't do. They shape the outcomes in our societies, the level of wealth, inequality, education, trust, and many others. If you're interested in understanding your place in the world, your ability to affect change, then you need to understand the social structures you are subject to. They are the element in which we all exist. Different social sciences look at different social structures. So sociology studies the groups we are part of, our families, our communities, our workplaces. Political science studies the structures of power that govern our lives, and economics studies the structures that manage our scarce resources. You can study one or all of these subjects in our degree programs. In our school, we also study and research philosophy, which in many ways is the root of many of the social and human sciences. Philosophy asks fundamental questions across the full spectrum of human and social experience, from what is reality or the mind to how do we know what we know. Philosophy also asks moral questions, asking questions such as what makes something good or right, and applies these questions to social structures, such as our political systems. So asking questions like, what is the best form of government, and how do we balance equality and liberty when these values are in tension? As well as addressing these questions, philosophy is a discipline that in its methods emphasizes reasoned argumentation, having reasoned defense of our views and critique of opposing views. So if you're interested in studying the social sciences and or philosophy in our school, there are a number of programs through which you can do so. If you want to study all the subjects I've spoken about, you might consider PPES, Philosophy, Political Science, Economics and Sociology. If you want to study the social sciences in combination with business, the program for you might be BESS, Business, Economics and Social Sciences. If you feel drawn to one of these subjects more than the others and another subject in a different school, you might apply for the Trinity Joint Honours Programme, where you can study combinations such as history and political science. There are many different combinations available. If you know that you only want to study philosophy, you might consider single honours philosophy. You can find videos with more details on all of these programs on the Social and Human Sciences website.
Hello and welcome to this short presentation on social work and social policy. My name is Dr. Julie Byrne and I'm the Director of Undergraduate Teaching and Learning here in the School of Social Work and Social Policy. So let's look at social policy first. What is it? What's it about? What's it trying to achieve? So social policy is about how social actors, such as governments, try to achieve the well-being and welfare of people in society. And they do that in the decisions that they make about policies and the services that then help them to implement those policies. And the reason behind these decisions is to try to address social issues or social problems that are part of all modern societies these days. So modern societies are complex, they're dynamic, and social issues such as inclusion and ageing have to be addressed. They have to be tackled if we are to live well and healthily in society. We also see that lots of modern societies have to cope with problems such as homelessness and poverty that also require responses from government in order to try to enhance the well-being and welfare of people. So social policy is about individuals, of course, about their experience and how well they are living their lives. But it's also about a higher order question, really, which is what we need to do overall to live in a diverse, a sustainable and a just society. So social policy looks to regulate some of the interdependencies between groups in society so that a common basic level of living conditions can be assured for everyone. Social policy is applied, it's focused on real people living real lives with real experiences arising from the decisions that governments make. That's why it's so important that we use evidence when we're looking at social policy. And social policy draws on evidence from Ireland, of course, but across the world to identify the impact of policies and therefore to shape new policies. Social policy is also interdisciplinary and it uses insights from disciplines such as political science and economics, law, sociology, even geography and history are part of the way that we understand the social issues that we face in our societies and come to grips with some of the solutions that are needed to address social problems. This array of disciplines is one of the reasons that social policy is sometimes called a field of study rather than a discipline. So, how do you study social policy at Trinity? We have an undergraduate degree in social policy through the Trinity Joint Honours Programme. So this is a 4-year programme where you can combine social policy as either a major minor degree or a joint award with political science, economics, sociology and a modern language. We also have a postgraduate diploma in social policy and practice for people who are already graduates. People who already have a degree can apply for this 1-year programme, which is fully online. So let's move on now to social work. What's it trying to achieve and how does it relate perhaps to social policy? So social work, if we look at this definition from the International Federation of Social Workers, is really about engaging both people and structures in order to address life challenges and to enhance well-being. So you might spot the connection there. So when it comes to well-being, in social work, a lot of what we might recognise as social work clearly is direct work with children, with adults and with families. What's sometimes called micro-social work and helping those individuals address the life challenges that they face. But there's also a macro social work dimension, which is the fact that social workers take account of the social context within which children, adults and families operate and the structures that might be affecting their lives, influencing their experience of their life challenges. So this is part of social work's broader agenda to achieve social justice, inclusion and human rights for all. And both parts of social work are part of this study of social work and show you the connection between the social policy decisions that are made by governments and how those are often felt or experienced on the front line is part of what social work experiences. There's lots of fields of practice in social work, from child protection and welfare, adult safeguarding, mental health, social work, as well as disability and probation. One of the crucial things about social work is that it is a profession. And in Ireland, it is a regulated profession. To practice as a social worker and to use the title social worker requires you to be registered by the Social Workers Registration Board. In Ireland, that's run by Corú. And when you enter the register of social workers in Ireland, you are also subject to a code of conduct and of ethics. This professional dimension of social work is one of the reasons it's such a mobile qualification, and it's possible for people holding a social work qualification to apply for recognition of that professional qualification in other jurisdictions and in other countries. So, how can you study social work at Trinity? We have an undergraduate degree. The Bachelor in Social Studies is a 4-year social work degree combining academic study and practice placement components. So this is where you go out on placement in a social work agency, such as TUSLA, for example, and you study both in that setting and combine it with your knowledge from the academic part of your programme. We also have a Master's in Social Work, which is a postgraduate program for people who already have an undergraduate degree, and that's a 2-year program which also combines academic study and practice placement. Now, what's really important for social workers or people interested in social work is to know that both of those qualifications are approved by the Social Workers Registration Board. So both programs, upon completion, will give you that award in your hand, which leads you to be eligible to apply to enter the Register of Social Workers. So that's a very brief overview of social work as a discipline and social policy as a field, and identifying the 2 different levels or 2 different arenas within which they operate, but spotting that connection between the two, which is really about well-being and welfare of citizens in our society. If you want to know more about either of these areas of study, there's a lot more information available. So firstly, you can check out the videos on the Social and Human Sciences Open Day webpage. There's also a lot of information about the courses themselves, about the modules, the content, and also the careers that are possible upon completion of those programs. And you can find those on the school website. That's the School of Social Work and Social Policy website. I hope you found that short overview interesting. Thank you very much for listening.
So what is psychology? Well, you might not realize it, but you encounter psychological research of one form or another every day. And that's because psychology touches on everything that we do, from our family lives to our work lives, our daily activities, our use of technology and our interactions with one another and with other living things and with our environment. And one reason for this universal appeal is that the goal of psychology is really to understand human nature, something that most of us are very interested in. But as psychologists, we do that using a very specific approach. Psychology is the scientific study of behavior and mental processes. So this means that as psychologists, we use scientific methods to study how and why people think, feel, and act the way they do. And we do this so that we can try to solve some of society's most challenging problems and to figure out new and better ways for people to exist and thrive in the world. But by scientific methods, I mean designing research studies and collecting, analysing and interpreting empirical data. So those are observations and measurements of people. So training in these empirical research methods and statistics actually forms the backbone of any degree in psychology. And that's because this empirical research is really fundamental. It provides the evidence base for everything that psychologists know and do. So what kinds of questions do we ask and answer using this empirical psychological research? So here are some of the questions you might encounter and learn to answer during your degree in psychology. How do babies develop language? Do our brains work like computers? What safety systems work best in aviation? Can animals have morals? Can you trust your memory? Why are some of us susceptible to mental illness? How can we help people to work or study more effectively? How do brain cells communicate to enable thoughts? What makes us happy? What can we do about the climate crisis? And many, many more. So when it comes to studying psychology at Trinity, we have only one pathway, and that is the single honours pathway. You can't combine psychology with any other subject, though you can take open and elective modules in other subjects during your 2nd and 3rd years of the degree. We have 47 places, and because that's quite small, our CAO points tend to be quite high. The psychology degree in Trinity is a basic requirement for further training in psychology. So you are not a qualified psychologist when you graduate from psychology, but you are. Our degree is formally accredited by the Psychological Society of Ireland, and it's recognised that by the British Psychological Society, so it forms a minimum entry requirement for further training. So if you want to go on to be a clinical psychologist or an educational psychologist or counsellor, for example.